GM fam, today is Thursday, October 19th. Today is the first day of the rest of all of our lives, and we sincerely hope that whatever you are building today is going to be leading our headlines tomorrow, at least assuming tomorrow is not going to be like a prison cast. As usual, the past 24 hours has delivered us about 1 year's worth of headlines, and we here at Leviathan are here to unpack all the stories that are fit to ink. I'm hosting solo today. So if you happen to have the link, feel free to join in. Or if you prefer to watch me squirm, think that might be much more entertaining, then by all means, stick around and watch as I try a solo capcast. Let's dive into it. And as usual, we're going to review today's top 5 headlines as voted on by you, our favorite squids and squidettes, over at leviathannews.xyz. Today's top story is DTCC is expanding its blockchain initiatives with the acquisition of Securency, emphasizing tokenization efforts. That one's brand new, so of course that one's rocketing up the leaderboards. We expect that one might fall off just a bit. The biggest headline that we've seen tearing up the leaderboards over the past 24 hours is yearn releasing veYFI. So this is following years of asking when, and yearn Finance finally delivered with veYFI. And in response, the dozen people remaining in DeFi all commented in unison, well, when V2. Other than that, it's all macro news. Chainalysis has released a detailed blog post detailing just how little crypto is actually used in financing terrorism. So let that sink in, all of you, just for a minute. Our industry has damaged our reputation so badly that even literal terrorists want nothing to do with us. They're like, nah, we're good. We also see that Circle has launched gas abstraction and smart contract beta tools amidst a broader push into Web3 services. So before you get too excited about that, we have to clarify up front that this is only helping with the inexpensive 7 Gwei Ethereum gas, not the $7 per gallon gasoline you might be seeing over the pump. Meanwhile, it's a bit more of a prison cast than usual. We see in the Terra Finance Luna case, court documents have revealed that the role of jump trading might be the only thing standing between Kwon and, appropriately enough, a jumpsuit. So how's that for the simulation winking at all of us? Meanwhile, some stories that have fallen off the front page here in New York. SBF's carefully crafted image as being quote-unquote pro-regulator is being undermined, as the judge admits private messages as evidence that he's actually not so friendly towards regulation, in which he stated, F regulators. So SBF is entering the find out stage. And finally, the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, has filed a complaint against Gemini, Genesis, and Digital Currency Group for fraudulently hiding and trying to cover up a $1 billion hole. So, Barry, sounds like it's going to be a big week, doesn't it? Let's go ahead and dive in with the absolute top story that we'd like to talk about here, which is, of course, yearn. And let's see if we can actually get some sound playing for this video here, because this one was quite a doozy. Those of you watching, comments? So if you're keeping track at home, we estimate that was roughly 1 month to develop the smart contracts, maybe 2 months to get it through audit, and then 2 years producing this fantastic video. as well as a great thread covering everything to do with veYFI. So we've got the thread up on the screen here, and just kind of diving into what it actually means. It's really Yearn Finance's most ambitious tokenomics overhaul to date, completely introducing the veYFI flywheel. So the major revamp aims to boost rewards and yields for veYFI holders as well as vault depositors. Again, the community's been waiting for this for nearly 2 years. If you lock up your Wi-Fi tokens, veYFI holders are able to now vote on the allocation of bought-back Wi-Fi to enhance vault rewards. It's a new model that also introduces deWiFi, which is a token that allows holders to purchase Wi-Fi at a discount. Furthermore, users can lock their veYFI for any period from 1 week to 4 years. And of course, similar to most VE tokenomics, longer locks will yield greater reward boosts. But an early exit is allowed. It will just incur a penalty that's going to benefit the remaining veYFI holders, which is a pretty sharp innovation on the VE tokenomics model. Meanwhile, the veYFI flywheel is not just a win for seekers, but it's also integrating Yearn Improvement Protocol 6. This is the buyback and build funds into the Wi-Fi tokenomics, which promotes a long-term outlook for Yearn's ecosystem. It's a revamp that could potentially drive more third-party protocols and DAOs to hold Wi-Fi and foster a more collaborative and robust DeFi environment. So despite the optimism, the overhaul still poses some risks. There's governance attacks, insufficient rewards, Wi-Fi liquidity drying up, which could, of course, affect the protocol's sustainability and market dynamics. So with this and everything that we do with Leviathan News, remember, this is not financial advice. This is educational material. If you're interested in learning a bit more about their tokenomics revamp, head over to Yearn Finance official website. We'll go ahead and bring up for you the actual pages of documentation covering all this. So you can see some of the stuff we talked about, YIP 56, buyback and build, the specification from their governance thread. Really interesting stuff. And in kind of related Yearn finance news, the legendary MarcoWorms released a interesting breakdown a few days ago of the protocols that Yearn vaults are currently allocating into. So we see it's very well diversified across the DeFi ecosystem. The leading plurality destination there is Curve Finance, which gets about 29%, followed by Aave at 18%, Lido at 16%, Compound at 15%, MakerDAO at 14%, and the remaining 4% is a mixture of Velodrome, Convex Finance, Liquidity, Son Finance, and Frax Finance. So a lot of well-vetted DeFi blue chips right there. So good stuff coming from the Yearn ecosystem. Our next story that we'd like to dive into here is that of Circle Finance, not Circle Finance, Circle, the TradFi entity, let's just call it. So Circle is launching and building some interesting tools within the space. In this case, we got this from our friends at The Block. Circle is launching gas abstraction and smart contract beta tools amidst a broader push into Web3 services. So, of course, Circle is most famous for USDC, which is the second largest stablecoin. But now they're actually building out some pretty interesting developer tools. There's the gas station, which is removing gas fees when integrated with Circle's programmatic wallets, which was a headline that we covered a few weeks ago, as well as larger smart contract support platform. So it's a pretty hefty move into some dev tools here, and let's dive in specifically to what this means. Because I found this pretty interesting, and you could actually get lost in a black hole if you want to dive into this a bit more. I was trying to figure out how exactly does this gas credits work, and the gas station is basically like there's a few ways of doing this, but this is being built off of the ERC 4337 standard. The ERC 4337 standard has been around for a couple of years, and it's one of the more like bullish ones. So you can see the protocol proposal here was authored by, of course, Vitalik Buterin, as well as several other. It's an account abstraction proposal, which is billed as avoiding the need for consensus layer protocol changes. And this is essentially like a standard which can, and I'm probably going to butcher this, so feel free to yell at me in the comments because we, of course, crave the interaction here. And one of the best things about crypto is yelling at people who are wrong on the internet. But basically, without having to like directly communicate with the mempool, it manages like a private mempool within the wallet. And it's such a kind of like interesting standard that we've actually seen the standard itself has its own account on X, nay Twitter, which has accumulated about 5,000 followers here. And they even host their own website, which delves into a lot more about the standard itself. So you could literally spend like a full morning reading through the standard, going into the docs and reading how the 4337 standard works. You can see here how the kind of user operation mempool is an abstracted version of the actual mempool that we're all familiar with. So it's in this manner that Circle is able to kind of engineer its way around this kind of gas token situation. So good stuff coming out of Circle. The only downside is that no one's left in the no one's left developing because we've all moved on. Still, we really strongly commend their efforts there. Continuing further and further down the rabbit hole and pushing things is always a bit more towards what we're used to in cryptocurrency, which is a crime cast, prison cast. Let's see if we can get the prison cast up. This will do pretty good. The Fed cast. We got Chainalysis has issued a very interesting report. And in this report, they basically are pushing back against a lot of the headlines that have come out over the past 24 or 48 hours. Of course, there's the tragic situation that's been going on in the Middle East. And some of the narratives that have come out of that is, narratives that we don't really subscribe to. They're being pushed by they're being pushed by people who seem to have an agenda. We're not going to name any names here, but some people are pretty mad at cryptocurrency for very modest amounts of funding, which is going to terrorism. And here, Chainalysis goes through and actually corrects the record. They basically say that if you actually dive into the numbers, there's not all that much terrorist activity that's being financed by cryptocurrency. For example, they look at this particular document here and try and find counterparties to a wallet that was suspected to be affiliated with terror financing, and they find 20 different suspected service providers. Each of these received a fair amount of money, but when you actually dive into it, it's a very, very small fraction of it that might have been linked to cryptocurrency. So as usual, like cryptocurrency is kind of like a tricky situation for people who are trying to commit crimes, because even though the cryptocurrency allows us the freedom to transact with kind of whomever we'd like across the globe, if you're trying to bring that back into the fiat economy, you have to go through the heavily policed guardrails and exchanges. So all the different centralized exchanges do a really good job of cracking down on illicit behavior. And as a result, terrorists don't end up using cryptocurrency all that often. It actually there's a interesting anecdote in here where I'm trying to find it. Hamas actually shut down their long-standing cryptocurrency donation program because they found that it was actually less safe for terrorist financiers to use cryptocurrency. So non-consecutive unmarked dollar bills, the US dollar variety, tend to be the preferred mechanism for transacting because cash is private, cash is untraceable, and cryptocurrency is none of those things. So just of course to remember, we don't offer financial advice on the show, but we are willing to say that if you're using cryptocurrency, please obey the law and please file all your taxes properly on it. Otherwise, you might find yourself in prison, like some of the other subjects of today's headlines. So we mentioned that the Kwon SEC case looks as if it's going to hinge on the role of jump trading. And what's interesting about this is this goes back just a couple of years. So if you look back to 2021, there was an interesting situation where UST had temporarily lost its peg to the dollar. And Kwon had told investors that this was due to the automated algorithm. But the SEC experts say that this is actually jump trading that was intervening into the markets at Kwon's behest. So a lot of kind of the case against Kwon is going to hinge on the actual role of jump trading and things. Of course, what Kwon was arrested for was possessing a false ID. He's currently sitting in a Montenegro jail trying to find out if he's going to be extradited to the United States. Kwon denies that he should be extradited to the United States because, and for one, arguing that like the U.S. doesn't have jurisdiction. That argument did fall apart a bit in courts, and also arguing sort of like a flashpoint right now within the current regulatory bodies. He's arguing that assets were all currencies and not securities. Therefore, the SEC would have no jurisdiction. Of course, the SEC thinks everything is a security, so they are contesting that. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just kind of like reading through this. But if you'd like to hear from a lawyer, we have scheduled as a guest tomorrow the great Alex, who often joins us on these live streams to talk about legal issues. So we might be able to go into a bit more detail about this. One final point on Do Kwon before we move on is that if you have read through the recent biography, SBF also has some interaction with the jump trade. And in particular, they were mentioning when the FTX exchange went bust, SBF claims that Jump lost nearly $300 million in that, which contrasts with its intersection with UST, where they made about 1.28 billion with a B in profits. And finally, we've given a bit of a short shrift, unfortunately, to the circus that's been taking place in New York City. But we do have to issue a content warning. So any viewers here, like we usually don't have to issue content warnings, but this is going to get a bit explicit. So this following story might be upsetting to some readers as it contains references to SBF. Anybody offended by human turds is advised to switch off the live stream right now. Going once, going twice, and all right, here we go. So SBF has seen that there's been a lot of analyses from people who are showing up in New York to pay attention to the SBF trial. Rumor has it, if you're in New York, you can actually just show up. You have to show up pretty early because the seat's still up, but you can actually sit inside the courtroom and watch the trial unfold. But I don't believe you're allowed to bring phones or other recording devices in, so it may be difficult for millennials to take part. Yesterday, the drama within the courtroom centered around the prosecution trying to undermine SBF's image. So SBF had been cultivating this image as like someone who is a proponent of cryptocurrency oversight. But if you read his private messages, it's clear that he had a public stance and a private stance, and the private stance was very much at odds with this. So again, we issued a content warning. We won't have to do it again, but the following comes to us from another collection of turds at Vox. But they did go ahead and publish his private messages. And when you read through the private messages, it's very clear that he had nothing nice to say about regulators. He clearly said to F them. They make everything worse. They don't protect customers at all. And one of the funny things is that, I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that, like, I can take a 90% drawdown in all the prices of my bags. The thing I couldn't stand was in the immediate aftermath of the collapse of FTX, when you saw all these kind of traditional media outlets, instead of like decrying SBF for the like piece of crap that he is, they were writing puff pieces about him and trying to like rehabilitate his image. And it was infuriating because there was no amount of evidence that could emerge that could get the mainstream media to flip on SBF. Except there was one of these private message leaks in which he basically described that he had this kind of adversarial relationship where he described the mainstream media as like needing to have these shibboleths that you would pretend to consider sacred if you want to be in people's good graces, but believing that, basically the implication of which saying is like he didn't believe any of this, and he just knew that he was kind of like speaking the whatever he needed to say in order to get in their good graces. And I knew at that moment it was going to be the case where that's what's going to get them to turn, because you could steal customers' money all you like, you can commit fraud, but if you start attacking the shibboleths, that's where you're in trouble. And sure enough, we've seen that a lot of the mainstream media has turned against SBF. It's probably one of the reasons that once the mainstream media turned against SBF, it provided some cover for people to go in and change the narrative, and now he's sitting on the wrong side of the trial here. So on screen, I'm not going to read it because it does contain some explicit language, but if you're following and watching this, you can actually see a lot of the story, a lot of the private messages that he's saying on screen. So he's quite a colorful character, colorful language, but a lot of his private messages probably indicate a bit more what the kind of the real SBF thought of things. He talked a lot about bending the truth. He talked a lot about bending or BSing his way through certain things. So we'll see how the jurors interpret this. I personally hope that SBF does not see the other side of a prison cell for quite some time, but your mileage may vary. We're not getting a lot of comments here in the live stream. We do urge you to comment. This is a solo cast, and your comments will go a long way towards helping things. We don't have many of these solo casts here on Leviathan News, but just as DeFi has been shedding users, we've been shedding co-hosts, and we're down to one. Our usual host, Sam, no relation to Bankman-Fried, he's feeling a bit under the weather today, so I'm pitching in, subbing for last minute. Tomorrow, we should the guests for today canceled, but they should be in as of Monday of next week. We have a bunch of good guests lined up Monday next week. It should be Ivan from Gearbox. Tomorrow, as mentioned, we have Alex. Other than that, we would urge you, we'll keep this short, given that probably no one wants to hear me monologue for quite some time. But we will return this to, as always, the home of it all, leviathannews.xyz, where you can get links to our Telegram, our Twitter, our YouTube, and our Spotify. We are just a decentralized community of cryptocurrency enthusiasts. We're crowdsourcing all the best headlines from across Web3. We'd urge you to help out. We are always looking for help to crowdsource the headlines, get them quality assurance checked and into your inboxes, into your Telegram feeds, into your X feeds as quickly as possible. So if you are interested in helping us out, please hit us up on Twitter, aka X. We will be happy to show you how things look behind the scenes. Also, follow us, subscribe. We are getting very close to being able to monetize this on YouTube. Once we can monetize this, we're going to have a much more sustainable way of delivering headlines to you. We do these live casts weekdays, Monday through Friday, and Shisha wins the comment of the day, along with the very late pop-up finally showing. Shisha comments, my man. And my man, here's pointing at you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for all that you do, fellow squids. We'll be back tomorrow. We do not do this full-time. So Shisha asks if this is a full-time profession. I am just moonlighting as a extremely handsome news broadcaster. Most of my time is spent developing educational materials for Curve Finance. Curve Finance, one of the leading blue-chip DeFi protocols. Curve Finance is more recently with Curve Finance, I've been working on a series of ape framework tutorials. So if you are interested in doing Web3 interactions, we've seen in the past week of live streams, we urge you to check those out, that there's been a lot of issues with the Web3 front ends. They're coming increasingly under fire, or in some cases, like Uniswap, they're being just straight up taxed. Uniswap is charging a 0.15% fee for all transactions. So a lot of people are looking to move off of that. And as one of the ways that you can do it is to disintermediate yourself from front ends. We had previously encouraged people to use the Brownie framework to interact directly with the blockchain. And I put out a wide variety of educational content on how you can interact with Curve contracts using Brownie. But more recently, we have Brownie's been deprecated. Brownie is no longer being actively maintained. So the fine folks at Ape Framework have actually just forked Brownie, made some changes, made some improvements in several cases, and released a fully modern framework for interacting with Web3, for testing your smart contracts, and best of all, they're updating it. So as the EVM continues to evolve, as the Ethereum devs stay productive and busy and upgrading the experience that we enjoy so much, so too is Ape Framework keeping their framework up to date. So we strongly recommend that you check out that tutorial. I'm working on a new one. All these tutorials are going to also involve interaction with CurveUSD, which is the new Curve stablecoin. And Shisha also asks if I get paid by Curve. I do get paid by Curve in a limited capacity. Some people know me from writing a newsletter about Curve. This is at curve.stack.com. It's a fantastic newsletter, if I do say so myself, but Curve does not for marketing. So all of that is done pro bono with some occasional contributions from people in the community. The role I have at Curve is developer outreach and relations. So to the extent that developers are billing against Curve and I'm helping out, either through tutorials or through, for example, like reaching out the Discord channel, I do get some compensation from Curve on that. So I definitely urge you to check those out. I definitely urge you to build against Curve because Curve puts a lot of effort into building out a robust developer community and building out the smart contracts in a way that are very easy and friendly to interact with. One of the ways that Curve does so is using veYFI. veYFI has also been making some noise lately. veYFI is a smart contract framework. I shouldn't say smart contract framework. It's a smart contract programming language, and it's a good alternative to Solidity. It is well, it comes with like 3 principles, which is that veYFI is designed to be readable, auditable, and to help users not make mistakes when coding. So as a result, if you're like actually like just browsing through Curve contracts, it's pretty easy to read through and understand what's going on. So some of the exciting headlines about veYFI that came out in the past 24 hours, which we will get this posted to Leviathan News as well, is that they Slither is now supporting veYFI, as well as 5 other detectors. So official Slither support for veYFI, as well as Echidna, Medusa. Very good stuff in terms of kind of fleshing out the veYFI community. Plus, veYFI is at EF Dev Connect in 2023 Istanbul. So if you are in Istanbul in the Middle East, please stop by, say hi to all of mine folks making veYFI happen. Shisha, again, carrying this as co-host duties, commenting is what we like to see here. Shisha asks me these great questions about if I'm doing this full time, if I'm paid by Curve, and then turns around to thank someone named Gary. So my name is Garrett, so I'm presuming Shisha's not thanking me. I'm guessing Shisha's thanking Gary Gensler. So Gary Gensler, you got a fan. Shisha says thank you for, I guess, keeping our space clean by cracking down on good actors and not the bad actors. So we'll go ahead and leave it on that. This has been Leviathan News. Today is Thursday, October 19th. Thank you all. You are all very beautiful people, and we thank you for joining. Until the next tide.